Hello everyone, my name is Anastasia, and today I'm going to talk about importance of Salesforce architecture to be in place in your project. This will be not a super technical call only for Salesforce architects. Today, in simple words, I'll describe why it is important to have architecture in place and what arguments you can use to convince your client or customer to plan time for architecture, to have properly planned sprint zero, where you will prepare solution design and perform research. So this talk will be also interesting for developers who are beginning their path as tech leads and also even for project managers, because project managers will understand main points, which manager will be able to highlight to customer, and customer will have an understanding of the all benefits that will be achieved within a proper architecture. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anastasia. I'm working with Salesforce more than 6 years. During my work with Cineba, I have worked with different projects, including work with companies from different sectors like healthcare, product support, services, consulting, sales, really different ones. Right now, I'm working as team lead and mentor, and also taking a position of Salesforce solution architect in a project. Let's review our agenda for today. Why architecture is important. This will be the main discussion for today. Benefits to have it in place. Some of them are obvious, but we will discuss points during each project phase where you will have benefits of architecture in place. And then we will cover a bit topic how to become an architect, what skills you require, because architect position require not only technical skills, but a couple of more. So let's jump into our main point, why architecture is important. Really, not all companies, not all customers do have an understanding on why and what solution architect is important to be in place. And they do not understand the real impact if their architecture is not properly planned and not organized. Usually understanding of that something is going wrong, and it is not understanding of importance of architecture yet, but this is a point where business, customer, client do have an understanding that something is going wrong. And usually this becomes only after 2-3 years without any kind of architecture planning, after company worked with 3-5 vendors or even more, and where each vendor team worked with their different code guidance, approach, style, architecture, so on and so far. And at this point, business starting to be surprised why each and every next request require each and every request which business present for the team require higher estimation and require more budget. And this is not the only one question which started to be really important one, because also we have different kind of questions like the following: why backlog of issues reported from production is growing? Why support team lost their KPI and cannot quickly resolve issues reported from production, and they have more, and more? Why each data fix execution sounds like a simple thing, but this is taking longer and longer? Why each new feature implementation is more complicated from development perspective? And a lot of other questions which do have the same answer. You do not have architecture in place in your project. And even if this answer is simple, the solution for this is not so simple, of course. And here I have mentioned that sometimes it happened to companies who are working with different vendors. And here I'm not saying that work with multiple vendors, multiple teams is bad. Here I'm talking about the company itself should be responsible for environment stability and must organize a proper architecture management. And a company must have decisions and must have understanding of which architecture should be in place. The project should have a properly defined standards that will allow organize a work in a straightforward way. And regarding those standards, it does include multiple things. And let me provide you one simple example of why standards are important and why, if you have a project where multiple teams working with different code guidance, it's bad. For example, trigger handler framework, pretty simple thing. Every project requires it, usually, in most cases. And if your environment will contain three the greatest in the world trigger frameworks, it will mean nothing. It will mean that your organization do not have trigger framework at all. Because if you have three different approaches on different objects, you have a real mess in your environment. And this is a point where solution architect, or it could be technical in different projects, the exact naming could be a bit different. But anyway, somebody responsible for the architecture must define the most appropriate solution for the current environment, for the current and for the potentially future requirements. And of course, define the only one standard for each and every trigger handler. So, and basically the same is related to other stuff like error handling, integration system logs, etc. CI/CD process, you should have standards. You cannot have multiple different solutions for the one thing. Okay, so we have described some points how company came to a point that it is required to have an architecture in place. So let's review three main points that organized system allow you to use. So the first one is predictability. When you have a properly organized, structured system, you have predictable system where you have understanding of how to build new feature. It's predictable where to put a new object. It's predictable what standard to use. This is what I have mentioned before, trigger handler, etc. System is predictable in terms of even when developer is working on the code, it's predictable for him what to choose, how to write. Reviewer do understand what will be provided like code because everything is predictable. And within this prediction, it's also clear on risk management. You can predict what kind of issues you may have, and you can already prevent them. And you have decreased the risk of them. Predictability also allows you to have a clear understanding of estimation on new requirements because it's predictable how much time will implement to, for example, onboard new service, onboard new team, and anything else. Stability. Stability is coming out of predictability because if your system is predictable, you can manage risks, you can predict how much time will take new feature, and your system is stable because you have planned and predicted structure. Also, stability does include that your system performance as well. And you do not have issues with governance limits. You are properly using user licenses. You are properly using custom Apex code. You do not have any too much customizations. And your environment is stable. You are not expecting any kind of exceptions that bombarding your admin address. And with this stability and predictability, you can easily manage how your system will grow, because it's easier to implement anything new in stable and predictable system rather than implement anything small in a really messy environment. You are not worried if you will put additional SOQL query and your system will crash, because you have a properly organized data model, code frameworks, etc. Then scalability. It does mean that your system is easily to maintain, and if we will move up to points predictability and stability, you have an understanding that how to implement that or another feature in your system, how to integrate it in your system, and you can easily manage it, because within a proper organized architecture, your solution is planned in the way that you can customize it and define some settings, for example, in either custom settings or custom metadata or some custom objects if it's complicated thing. And some of the stuff you could even manage after the release without any code change, because you could predict some points from the business. Yes, right now they want to have only this one thing, but potentially later we could have multiple similar things. So we are building it in such way so we will be able to reuse some kind of components and then easily maintain system. So those are main 3 points which you are achieving with having an architecture in place. What else we do have within a proper architecture in place? How you can basically save time, and your life will become much easier if you do have standards in place. But everyone do say that we will save time in case if architecture will be in place. But let's review each project phase and understand where exactly we will have this time saved and what we need to implement to really have this time safe. To explain basically what we will save during the development, I will write down each and every phase of the basic project. So we are taking some general items from the phase where we are obtaining phase where we are obtaining business requirements, till the phase when we have release and maintenance support. And on each phase, we will review potentiality of how and where we will reduce time. Basically, if you have architecture in place and if solution architect prepared a structure of solution, high-level requirements, and if you have properly organized your system, you're saving about 20% of development. So let's review it deeper. And let's review the points that we are saving time, not only during development. So we are taking the project plan since the point where we have business requirements described. And we are a bit omitting part where we have solution discussion with BA. So BRD was already communicated between business and BA, and we have a solution architect who is working on the solution architecture planning and describing high-level technical solution document. Later a bit, I will describe also main points why it is important to have documentation in your project and which problems you will face in case if you do not have documentation. So implementation. Implementation phase, by this, right now I do understand the development phase. And as I mentioned before, approximately within a properly planned architecture, you are saving time during every step on the project. And approximately about 20% of development will be saved. Okay, so as I mentioned, during the first phase, solution architecture, solution architect prepared a high-level technical solution design. It is documented and written design which developer could review and came back with some questions. And here, let's review also, I want to highlight a few points why documentation is important. Because also a lot of the projects saying that documentation is waste of time. Some clients do not want to spend time on it, but they really do not understand the real impact of it. So the lack of clear documentation can lead to a variety of problems, including the following. First one, development cycle spent on reworking existing implementation. So basically, developer implemented the first solution, then architect declined, developer must implement a new one, or for example, business changed their mind and developer do not have any kind of proof that it's a change request. Then repetitive discussions, revisiting or puzzling over previous decisions. So basically, we do not have any place where requirements are tracked, and we do not have an understanding what is a change request and what is miscommunication maybe basically. Long onboarding for new team members or vendor. If you do not have documentation, you have nothing to share with new team member. And you will have to spend much more time on explanation, calling, mailing, texting, chat to explain each and everything that you have already explained to different people who already working and onboarded to the project. Over depends on individuals with historical knowledges. You may have a really difficult legacy implementation, which you are trying time to time to refactor. Sometimes it's taking ages, but still. But if this legacy stuff is documented, everyone could take a look in documentation and at least do have high level understanding of what should be touched and what you should just not touch. Just not. And you can have the only one person in your team who have really deep knowledge about it. And it's not super great because it could be that person will be on sick leave, taking vacation, anything. So it's really important to have this thing to be documented so anyone from team will be able to support. Then, difficulty on communicating the purpose and value of your solution um, to key stakeholders and support team. So basically, if you will have documentation in place, support team will be able to manage simple stuff without your involvement. In case if anything will require just a simple change in custom setting or custom metadata, some simple adjustment which are not require code, this will be much easier for them and for you because you will not have to spend time. So we are on the point where solution architect prepared documentation high level 1 and developer starting working on implementation. During implementation, we need to understand that we are assuming that we have architecture in place. If we have architecture in place, we have standards. And this is not only include code, this also include all declarative stuff and data model description. So let's start from the code standards, and let's start with the most simple one, like naming convention. Naming convention for and it should be defined for each and every source of Salesforce metadata. Define a set of conventions for how every customization in the system is to be named. Well-defined naming convention doesn't just enforce consistency across the name's object, fields, code, flows, and etc. A proper naming convention also helps development teams to use names that convey information about the purpose and functionality of what they're building. As a result, other stakeholders and support team can better understand a particular customization with a simple take a look on the name. Also, if you have a proper written naming convention, you are saving time of developer to think and how to name that or another thing. You also saving time for research and analysis because it's predictable and you can easily understand where to find each or that thing. You should have a properly defined data model to make it stable and predictable. If you have a stable environment with data model, it's easier for each new feature to be implemented because you can understand where it's better to put. Also, you must have approved design patterns. It's also required for development and administration and their use cases. Establish a library of patterns along the key information about them, and when not, to each pattern. The library must include required Apex trigger frameworks, error handling, guidance for lighting web components, because it's also important to have a set of generic components that are reused across environments, because in this case, you are following the approach that you do not have repeatable code, and the implementation is also much faster when you are reusing already configured things. So this is also saving time for developer from the very beginning of the project. Also, you should have development environment and tool guidance. Maintain a clear list of tools development teams are to use in their work, because it also saves time when you are guiding your developers what and where to use better, because in this case, they will have optimized their work. Also, in your code guidance, you should describe code style. And it's really important because if you have single described standard for code style, it's easy to read, faster to modify, and much faster for review. Because a few times more, I will also come back to predictability and stability. And for a viewer, it will be predictable how developer is supposed to write code. And for developer, it's predictable what reviewer will expect from his code. And as I mentioned already before, you must have frameworks described. And in frameworks, I do include also things like Test Data Factory, because Test Data Factory is really time saver for every project to write test classes, because each and every project require writing Apex test classes. And if you have a nice test data factory which is intuitive for use, it's really time saver for new developers, especially as they are recently onboarded to the project. Of course, trigger handler that I have mentioned, logs. If you have an integration, you should have a proper way to write and save logs and different other stuff. Also, you could implement continuous integration process, which is also a great time saver for developer to track changes, pull changes from the master which are recently to production, resolve conflicts, provide an easier review, and etc. So during development, we have a lot of steps and phases where we are saving time. The main stuff is that you should have somewhere a place where all this documentation will be written. And for this, you could use different tools, depend on your project and depend on what you have. Yeah. So basically, we have described, let me summarize points: data model, naming convention, code style, what tools developers should use, frameworks, continuous integration process. And all this stuff will save you time during implementation. Then, testing. After something was implemented by developer, usually we are coming to a phase where it will require manual testing. And in some cases, you may have automation testing. It also depends on the project. But we are taking it into a general testing phase. You may think that during testing, how architecture could impact on it. It's completely different part of the project. But of course, you may think, and your customer may think, that testing has nothing to deal with environment architecture, but it has a direct impact because architecture is planned. Each and every new solution is designed in a way to fit existing system. So it does mean that QA engineer will spend much less time on regression testing. And it doesn't mean that regression testing will be no longer required. Of course, it will be required, but within a stable and predictable structure, you will have much less number of regression issues. And this is saving time because regression testing will be passed successfully. You will not have any kind of regression to fix frequently. Only it could be some minors which are predictable. So we are saving a lot of time for QA engineer also to have an understanding of the project because we have documentation, we have shared library with all documented stuff where QA engineer can review and understand the whole project. UAT. Also, of course, within a proper stable architecture, they have mentioned already multiple times, UAT phase will be also much easier. And within a proper architecture, proper documentation, you have clear expectations from business, what will be implemented, and you have clear understanding of your stuff as well. Release. Time during release, proper architecture is saving time during release process as well. And release manager will be able to perform faster releases with higher quality. Of course, we do have usually initial peer review on implementation phase, which is made by tech architect, tech lead of the project. But during the release process, usually companies also have additional review, which is made by release manager. And sometimes you have phases where you have to validate your things in CI sandboxes. Sometimes you are directly moving to UAT or pre-prod environment. So here we're also moving back to the point that we have code guidance provided to each developer. So we're expecting the code will be written in an expected and predicted manner. This is time saver for release manager on code review and also on solution review, because we already had solution discussion from the very beginning, we do not have any surprises for release manager. For example, we do not have any solution which was changed really from the top on the bottom. We do not have any unexpected things which came up only before the release. So within the planned architecture, you have so basically in this case you have predictable also timing on the releases, and you could understand how much time it will take to review each or that thing. And you can basically plan timing for your release manager, and release manager will be not occupied with a lot of releases. So basically, if you have proper organized solution, you are saving time in the future on the following. It's easy to maintain and support, less risk at hypercare period after release, about which we will talk about shortly, and much easier to extend solution if we need to extend it or build anything on top of that. Okay, so we have released our product to production, and usually we have hypercare period, which is could be 2 weeks, could be a month after your solution is released to production. So how we are saving time during this phase? We do have documented our technical solution. So in case if any issue comes up on production, support team can review documentation and resolve some simple stuff on their own. So basically, they will be able to resolve some issues like field level security. It could be that something was missed after the release, or anything should be changed in custom setting configuration during hypercare, or some components should be changed their position one after another, not as from the very beginning. And hypercare moves much easier in case if you have everything properly defined. Then, of course, maintenance and support. Maintenance and support is also much easier because you have a stable system where you do not have issues with limits, exceptions, and etc. And maintenance and support is also much easier because your system is scalable, and it's easy to adjust your solution as you have stable development on top of which it's easy to create new features, customize new things, so on and so far. So basically, you do not have any kind of issues with new business requirement which may come up. Okay, so let's talk a bit about important things for architecture to be. How to become an architect? What skills do I need? What is important to have an understanding? Of course, to be a Salesforce architect, you need to have deep technical knowledges. You should spend years working with Salesforce before you will become a Salesforce solution architect or any kind of other architects, because we have some kind of difference between architect position, and depend on the size of the project or company, you may require some different skills. But to become a really solution architect, you really need to spend years working with Salesforce, work with different environments, understand different technologies. guide a few teams, and really do have a deeper knowledge understanding not only about governance limits. You should be able to troubleshoot really complicated stuff and provide a clear solution for the development team for them to implement it. Salesforce architects are team leaders and trusted digital advisors. Keeping an eye on big picture, they enjoy solving problems in depth. Their expertise in functional, platform, and integrational architecture make them strategic advisors at an executive level. Also, uh, the solution architect should be effective in management, but usually not in employee management. It's more on technical side. But still, solution architect can manage expectations with the client and the team. So basically, having both technical Salesforce skills along soft skills is imperative in fulfilling in solution architect role. Let's review some skills which are important also to be a solution architect, because as I have mentioned, only technical skills are not enough, because of course you need to know different integrations, SAP, REST, etc. And we will not complete this call for each and everything that from technical perspective solution architect should understand. But let's review a few points which are important for architect. First up, you have to love Salesforce. You are designing and responsible for delivering the best possible solution for your client. You must be certain on what you are proposing. You should really believe in your solution. This comes to experience. This really comes with experience, but you must be prepared to put time and effort learning Salesforce inside and keeping out with all the releases, because Salesforce always prepare you some surprises 3 times per year, and you need to review each and every release, because sometimes you could have a problem that you could not resolve for ages, and new release is just solving your problem with one toggle enable. So basically, you need to love Salesforce. You need to be interested in each and every feature which it provides, and you should be able to suggest if new feature is suitable for your customer, or otherwise say, no, this feature is not stable now. Let's wait a bit. And once this feature is stable, we will try to use it. Because you really need to trust yourself, believe in your solution, and of course, understand best practices. Teamwork and leadership. Working as a team is imperative, especially for bigger projects. It's like you are working with different teams, and you need to communicate and work well. Otherwise, you will lose trust and understanding of your team. But in the same time, you must follow leadership. As solution architect, you are the more senior, the more important human in your project team. And as I mentioned, you will really have a lot of pressure, because everyone will trust your decision. Everyone will believe in it. And you should be confident on each and every your solution. Also, this part, teamwork and leadership, also include mentoring, because it's really easy to work on your own and be focused on yourself. But what makes a great team player and great architect? is someone who mentor and bring their whole team up with them, because you need to share your knowledges with more junior people in your team, and you need to share your experience, and you will be able to meet deadlines, to have productive work if you will share it properly. So mentoring is also really important part of teamwork and leadership. And of course, I could not skip this part. Keep calm. You will have a lot of pressure on a position solution architect. And if you are not ready for this pressure, you should wait a bit for this position because it will be a lot of pressure from team, business, and everyone else. Because there will be times where it can be overwhelming, but a leading example is okay. You need to share properly your work with team members. Not only team members should trust you, you should trust your team members as well, because you are guiding them how to work, you are guiding them with code standards, and you should trust that they will work on those implementations properly. So do not forget about those soft skills, because those are really important, and in most cases they are underestimated. Because if you do want to become a solution architect, you should be capable to explain your solution not only to developers, so they will do have understanding from the technical standpoint. You need to be able to explain your solution to business in a simple word that they will do understand it. And also, you should be capable to explain your solution to support team, because they are not always have the same level of expertise as you have, and you must find the words to explain your solution for all those stakeholders. And this will guide you to solution architect, because sometimes people think that if I will pass all Salesforce certificates in solution architect position, I will become the greatest solution architect in the world. No, because you are coming to this position within the experience, and it's really taking time. And as I mentioned before, I really love Salesforce and I really love working with it, because it's never boring and you always must learn new things. Thanks everyone for your attention. Feel free to contact me if you will have any questions. See you.